Hi, I'm Mark Kelligsberg, and hi, I'm Mark Kelligsberg. Today is the 25th of March, and we're talking coronavirus and Federal Reserve bailouts. So, for many people watching this, you'll be stuck at home now, dealing with, either containment of coronavirus or quarantine or, government lockdowns. And that's a whole different story, and really a question which begs, what is the nature of preparedness, whether it comes to prepping or in terms of, these kind of crazy unforeseeable circumstances or financially and, system failures. But I think a lot of the way people view being prepared will be very, very different once this is all done. In the meantime, though, I just want to take a couple of minutes out to talk about the Federal Reserve and their new stimulus package. It's funny how a stimulus package does nothing but really hurt the economy. And also some comments made by Neel, the president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, which were shocking. And basically the reason for the stream, there's a lot going on. I also have kids at home, and there's a lot we're trying to deal with in the corona lockdown situation. But this is one of those comments that I think just can't get past, and that's really that the Federal Reserve has infinite money, infinite cash to solve, any financial crisis, and to print as much money as needed to deal with the problem. Now, firstly, let's put a couple of things in context. Corona is a very, very infectious pandemic. It is very scary for many, many people, and it is dangerous. And the primary concern here for everyone should be, health and the welfare of people who could potentially get infected or, even get sick or worse from it. That being said, as this all plays out, the primary damage or the lasting damage of coronavirus, in my opinion only, will be economic. It will be the economic fallout, and I think many people have not yet begun to realize the extent of this, and it's going to make many things like 2008 look like a bit of a walk in the park, potentially. And I think we have three types of countries in terms of dealing with this, at least from an economic perspective. We have those countries which measure their return to normal economic activity in weeks. We have those which hope to by the end of the year, and those which are unlikely to recover this decade. But that again is my opinion only. I'm not an economist, and time will tell, and hopefully we're all paranoid and things will be much, much better than they could be, and we'll all sit here saying, oh, look how we overreacted. That's the best outcome. But I think it's clear for many, many countries already, and if you look at economies, like Italy, or the manufacturing, delays that happened in China and now seem to be coming back online, or even just what's happening in a lot of European countries, even what I'm experiencing here in Israel, which I think has responded relatively well, at least from an economic perspective, or what looks like inbound in the US. It's clear that a lot of the fallout here is going to be economic. It's going to be financial, and it's going to hit the people in society who can afford it the least, generally being the working class, the people who don't have the kind of capital reserves to deal with these kind of situations, and the people who, for the most part, trust that the government wouldn't let something like this happen. So, in response to that, the Federal Reserve has decided to release another $2 trillion into the economy in various forms, and there's also a federal and a Senate level bailout or stimulus package. So it looks like as of today it's actually up at $6 trillion. And just to put in context, I mean, this is a material percentage of the GDP, of the global GDP even. This kind of money cannot be thrown around lightly, and we're early on into this, so if this is the numbers we're talking about now, I expect them to get bigger. But the point is that releasing a couple of $1 trillion into circulation, either in real terms or in form of bailouts and buybacks and some of the other very clever mechanisms that are being spoken about here, are a route to devalue currency very, very, very fast. And a lot of these measures are necessary, again, in my opinion, only not an economist, as a result of poor fiscal policy leading up to this, and perhaps lack of learning from the previous crisis. There's only so far economies can be held on the brink and the precipice and expected to just keep riding it out, and slowly using up all the kind of ammo that governments have to deal with this. Things like quantitative easing, which is a very, very scary way of saying diluting currency. Fractional reserve banking, the interest rate cuts, and these subsidies on different markets and manufacturing and agricultural sectors that artificially prop up something that isn't really there. This idea of printing money. So, for a second, I want to vent a little bit about what I believe is a shocking comment made by an employee of the federal government. Now, again, put things in context. Corona, very bad. I believe the lasting effect will be economic fallout. Next, put in context, Neel Kashkari is not the voice of the entire US federal government, but he is a representative of them. He is president of a pretty large Federal Reserve. So I would say that at minimum, his opinion should be considered, even if not completely and exhaustively representative of all people in government. It's scary that at that level it even exists. And the comment was very simple, is that we shouldn't be worried as a public about the crisis because the Federal Reserve has the ability to print infinite amounts of money to solve the problem. Wow, that is a disgusting comment on so many levels. So, two possibilities. One is Mr. Kashkari doesn't understand why that statement is not true, which is scary. From an economic point of view, the idea that the president of the Federal Reserve would not actually understand how basic economics work would be very, very scary for a country like the US. Well, the second possibility is that he does understand that it doesn't actually work that way and there isn't an infinite supply of money. If he does understand, then the two possibilities again is that he doesn't think that you or us as a public will grasp how disgusting a statement that is, and just kind of be abated and calm by the fact that there's an answer. We've got unlimited money, and no one will actually think about what it means that they have infinite amounts of money to print, or that he doesn't care if we do realize. So basically the way I see it is we have three possibilities here. The one is that the present Federal Reserve doesn't actually understand how money works, or he thinks that the rest of the world, including trade partners in other countries and the average citizen, doesn't understand how money works, or he doesn't care if anyone realizes that he doesn't care how money works. Any of these scenarios is incredibly, incredibly scary. And going on this printing press frenzy, as one report in Telegraph called it, going full Zimbabwe, is only a recipe for financial and economic disaster for any economy, even the US. And the idea that the US, which has balance of trade and debts and agreements with other countries, can just print infinite money, is basically a big go jump to anyone else that the US does business with on any sort of level. And in terms of the average citizen, I think it is exactly the opposite of what the government is there to be doing for the average citizen. The government and the Federal Reserve is meant to deal with fiscal policy to ensure the ongoing and successful progression and moving forward and sustainability of the US economy. And acting this irresponsibly is going to screw the very people who have elected these people to represent them, the very people that are meant to be protected by these agencies even existing, and to a level which the average working person cannot do anything about, may not even be able to fathom, but is not going to be a cup of coffee less a day, or some couple of weeks in lockdown inside. This is materially life-threatening financial ruin to the average person in the street, so that people on high, from a federal perspective or a government perspective, can either pretend that this isn't going to be a problem, or deal with it in a way that is guaranteed to rip out like a large chunk of the middle class of any sort of, large global economy, send the world back into a global recession that will take years and years to recover from. And if you remember scenes from the 2008 recession, there were 10 cities. People lost their homes, and a lot of this was, subprime mortgage rates and a whole bunch of other really, really not responsible financial policies by the US. But we're back here again, and again, zero lending apparently is one of the things that's being put in place to deal with this. This seems like people have not learnt. And the scariest part for anyone watching who doesn't have a huge grasp of economics, and I'm not an economist, if you inject huge amounts of fake money that didn't exist yesterday into an economy that is struggling, it will not help the economy. It means that all the money that was there before, which wasn't enough to prop up the economy, will be worth less, which means that everything is actually worth less and is now dependent on fake money being injected into the economy to survive. You do not need to be an economist or a rocket scientist to understand that, especially in an ongoing and as of yet undeveloped, economic crisis, starting this early, this strong, with this much fake money as stimulus is going to derail many, many economies. And the US, may be able to recover from it and may not be at the rate that they're going as well. But it's going to be on the backs of many, many working class people, and there are many global economies that will not come back from this for a very, very long time. So, very simple. Minneapolis Federal Reserve, particularly Neel Kashkari, and anyone else watching this or in government who shares the opinion that you can inject huge amounts of fake money into an economy that has been running on bad fiscal policy to save it, please wake up. Please go speak to someone who knows a little bit more. Please go to a course or some sort of lecture on basic macroeconomics, because you are bringing about the downfall of the global economy. And the average person in the street who doesn't understand this and who's entrusted you to deal with this is the person who's going to have to pay the price to clean up the mess you made, because you can't face either the reality or the truth or the burden of the mistakes that you've made up until now. So, very simple. Federal Reserve, very, very bad policies at the moment. Huge amounts of stimulus, very, very bad. And that's one of the reasons we've seen the Bitcoin price doing well. And unfortunately, it's one of the reasons that a lot of people are going to get hurt very, very badly over 2020, even past the flattening of the curve of Corona and everything else. So please, guys, be safe. Be safe, common sense, do what you can, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. And my 2 cents, again, non-economists, buckle down. Things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. I hope I'm wrong. In the meantime, be safe. Learn about Bitcoin. Learn about economics. And, a bit of common sense, guys. Be safe.